Welcome to LeapFrogBI Academy course AS110, Project Configuration and Security. This is going to be another quick course, primarily for account administrators, where we're going to take a look at the process for setting up a new project, and we're also going to take a closer look at permissions. Okay, so to get started, I'm going to jump over to my LeapFrogBI.com browser here, and I'm going to log in. I'm logging in right now as an administrator. When I do so, I will be able to create a new account, or a new project, excuse me. So I'm going to go over to the projects list. You can see right now I have a single project, which is the default project. I could edit this project if I wanted to, or I can create a new project. I'm going to go ahead and create a new project just so that we can go through the whole process. So I'm going to click on New. I'm going to give this project a name. I'm going to name this project after the course that we're currently on. It's going to be what we do throughout all of the LeapFrogBI Academy courses. We'll try to name all the projects related to the course the same as the project number. Now I'm going to activate this project, which is going to allow users that I assign to it to actually develop or browse the project. And then I'm going to select the target system. Now, LeapFrogBI supports SQL Server 2008 R2 and SQL Server 2012 as target systems. I'm going to select SQL Server 2012. I'm going to create that project. Okay, so I can see that now I do have an AS110 project. I can select that project, set that as my current project, and now I can see that I do have AS110 as my current project. If I moved over to components and began developing components, I would be developing within the AS110 project. Now, a project is a container for components. Components do not have access to components that are outside of the project, so it is a clear delineation between projects. Now within each project I can set up that project profile, and that's done here. Let's just step through each of these different project settings so that we can understand their behavior. First of all, the project permissions. Now as an administrator, I can assign my users to be either developers or browsers within this project. So for example, I have my LeapFrogBI Academy student user here. I'm going to make that a browser, and I am an administrator, so I'm automatically a developer, but I'm going to go ahead and just add myself as a developer as well. So I have now a developer and a browser, and that's pretty much all there is to setting up security on projects. Browsers will only be able to read the component, the information, and developers will be able to edit and add new components. All right, so let's go jump back over to our project list. The next thing we want to take a look at is the project life cycles. Now in the project life cycle area, this is where we're going to define the life cycles that our project is going to be deployed to. Typically, you'll have a development life cycle. You'll probably have a QA or a test life cycle, maybe multiple QA and test life cycles or both. Then you're probably going to have a production life cycle. To set these up, I'm going to go ahead and create a new life cycle here. It's extremely simple. I give the life cycle a name. I'll call this one production, and an abbreviation. Now this abbreviation is important. This is the part of the suffix that's going to be used whenever we deploy. So we'll go over this in a little more detail, but for now, you can decide if you want to use the same abbreviation for all your life cycles or not. If you do so, then that's going to mean that your environment variable that LeapFrogBI is going to use to attach to the configuration information is going to determine whether that environment variable is the same in all of your environments or not. So I'm just going to set this up to be the same. I'm going to call it LFBIA for LeapFrogBI Academy. I should call this my production lifecycle. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing for my development and my QA lifecycle. Be back in a second. Okay, I have my lifecycle set up here. I've got a production, a development, and a test lifecycle, and pretty much good to go. I'm going to go ahead and reorder these though. I want to make my production lifecycle the third stage. So I'm going to edit and place that in step 3. Now I have it in the order I like: development, test, and production. We'll talk more about life cycles as we start working on creating connection components and deploying projects. For now, let's just move on to the project status. Now in the project status, this gives us a kind of a free-form way of tracking the status of different components. I can add pretty much anything I want in here, like let's say we want to requires review. This component requires review. Something like that. You can, whatever status values make sense for your project, you can just make those available here or create those different statuses here, and they'll be available to assign to every component. Okay, moving on, we're looking at the project prefixes. Project prefixes help us keep our component naming throughout the project consistent, as well as some of the fields that are created automatically by LeapFrogBI. We can provide prefixes for those as well. As a best practice, it's always a good idea to provide some type of component prefix, or I should say some type of namespace for each of the different types of components. Starting out with the system prefix, this prefix is what's going to be placed on all fields that LeapFrogBI creates. And those are going to be fields like ETL load times, some of my slow change dimension tracking fields, and so on. I'm going to just leave this at the default with LFBI underscore, so it'll create a field such as LFBI underscore load time. Then down below, I can apply prefixes to each of my different types of components. So I have stage, PSA, transform, dimension, and fact types of components. And I have the option. I can place prefixes on here, or I could not place prefixes on them. It really doesn't make any, there's no right or wrong way to do this. We just want to do it in a way that fits my project's needs. Now, one thing we need to be aware of is that LeapFrogBI is going to ensure that components and their target objects that they create are ensured to be unique within the component namespace. So, for example, I can't name the same stage component or two different stage components the same name. However, I could name a PSA component the same as a stage component. If I do so, and I deploy those two components to the exact same database, same server, and same schema, then I'll have a name collision. So we have to be a little bit mindful of this and ensure that if we aren't going to be setting up our connections so that we're deploying to distinct namespaces, then we do want to apply some type of component prefixing. Now I am going to be setting up namespaces using schemas for all of my different components, so I'm not going to actually prefix the component name itself. I'm going to end up creating a stage schema, PSA schema, transform schema, and a DW schema for my dimensions and facts. So I will leave this just like that. And then I have a couple more options here. I can delete a project, I can copy a project. That's pretty much self-explanatory. Okay, that's pretty much all there is to setting up projects. I'm going to go back and take a look at one thing though in the account settings now. Now that I've actually assigned my user, my student user, permissions to a project, I can go and take a look at that particular user's project permissions. This is just another way that I can manage that user's security. Once I do get many projects in here, I don't want to have to go through all those projects and try to remove the user from all projects. I can do it in that one centralized location. We're now ready to move on to developing our components.